I'm getting ready to read chapters 9 and 10 of Good Morning Gorillas. And this chapter, chapter 9, is Goodbye Gorillas. Jack couldn't stop smiling. He'd scared off a leopard. Boo Boo and Ho Ho stared at Jack with awe. Annie looked at him with awe, too. When did you learn to do that? She asked. Before Jack could answer, he heard a rustling in the brush. Then Big Guy stepped out from the shrubs. The giant gorilla walked silently over to Annie. He took Little Guy from her and put the baby on his back. Then he touched Annie's cheek gently. Annie grinned at him. Boo Boo and Ho Ho ran to Big Guy and clung to his legs. The giant gorilla barked at the small ones, directing them to come with him. As he walked past Jack, Big Guy stopped. Huh, 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 he said in a low voice. He reached out toward Jack. Jack ducked. But the silverback patted him on the head. Then he and the small gorillas moved out of sight. Jack felt as if the top of his head were glowing. Wow, he whispered. Did you see what he just did? Yes, said Annie. He must have watched the show you put on. He was proud of you. Well, he was proud of you too, Jack said modestly. Annie nodded, smiling. I guess it's time to leave now, she said. Leave, said Jack. We have to say goodbye now, said Annie. Goodbye, said Jack. He didn't want to say goodbye to the gorillas. He loved them. They were totally great. Yeah, Annie said softly. Come on. She led the way back through the shrubs, around the trees, to the clearing. They found all the gorillas awake. Some were stretching and yawning. Others were munching on leaves or grass. The baby was back in his mother's arms. Boo Boo and Ho Ho were chattering away to their moms. They're probably telling him what I did, Jack thought. He and Annie walked over to Big Guy and stood in front of him. The other gorillas gathered around. We have to go now, Annie said to all of them. We have to say goodbye, said Jack. Thanks for letting us be part of your family, said Annie. She and Jack held up their hands and waved. The gorillas looked sad. They murmured soft sounds. Big Guy lifted his hand in the air as if he were about to wave, but instead, the silverback raised his thumb, his index finger, and his little finger. I love you, the giant gorilla sighed. Jack couldn't believe his eyes, and he sighed back. I love you. Jack sighed too. The silverback stared at them for a long moment with a gentle, shy look. Then he turned away and gave a short bark to his family. All the gorillas lined up behind him. The baby mother held her baby close. Ho Ho rode piggyback on his mom. Boo Boo held her mom's hand. The silverback started away from the clearing. The others followed. Boo Boo was the only one who looked back. She screeched and waved at Jack and Annie. Then she walked away, out of sight. Jack couldn't talk. His heart was too full. He took a few steps in the direction of the gorillas. Hey, Annie said softly. You're going the wrong way. Jack looked at her. The treehouse is over there, she said. She pointed in the opposite direction at the treehouse, peeking out for the fog. Jack sighed. Then he turned and started to follow her out of the clearing. Oh, don't forget this, said Annie. She leaned over and picked up Jack's backpack from the grass. She handed it to him. Thanks, he said. They kept walking. And don't forget this, said Annie. She picked up Jack's jacket from under a tree. She handed it to him. Thanks, said Jack. He tied his jacket around his waist. They kept walking. And don't forget these, said Annie. She pointed to the flashlight and umbrella. They lay on the ground under the wide, mossy limbs of a fat tree. Annie picked them up and carried them herself. It started to drizzle again just as she and Jack got to the rope ladder. They climbed up into the treehouse. When they got inside, they looked out the window. Jack hoped to catch one last glimpse of the gorilla family. But there was nothing to see. A white mist covered the cloud forest. Annie picked up the Pennsylvania book she wanted. She pointed to a picture of Frog Creek Woods. I wish we could go home, she said. Suddenly a joyous screech rang out. The happy wild sound shot through the white mist, through the cool rain, straight into Jack's heart. He opened his mouth to answer the call of the gorillas, but it was too late. The wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 10, A Special Magic. Tap, tap, tap. Jack opened his eyes. The Frog Creek woods were still dark and rainy. We're home, Annie said. Jack sighed. I miss them already, he said. Me too, said Annie. Did you take a lot of notes on their habits and behavior? Jack shrugged. I list a few things about them, he said, but sometimes lists don't tell you much. You have to love gorillas to really know them. Yeah, that's right, said Annie. Jack opened his backpack. He pulled out the research book and put it in the corner. Then he pulled out the twig that Ho-Ho had given him. He smiled as he showed it to Annie. I promised Ho-Ho I'd eat this later, he said, but I think we should save it for Morgan instead. Good idea, said Annie. It'll prove to her that we found a special magic. Yeah, gorilla magic, said Jack. The magic of all animals, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. He placed the twig next to the scrolls they brought back from old England. Let's go, said Annie. She started down. Jack pulled on his backpack. He put the flashlight in his pack. Then he grabbed the umbrella and followed Annie. They started through the Frog Creek woods. It was still cool and dark and rain. Jack didn't mind, though. He didn't put on his jacket. He didn't take out the flashlight. He didn't put up the umbrella. Jack felt as if he weren't completely human yet. There was still a bit of gorilla left in him. Ho, 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 he said in a low voice. Boo, boo, Annie said back. Huh, 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 they said together. More facts for Jenny and Jack and Annie and you. Gorillas are the biggest members of the group of animals we call primates. Other primates include chimpanzees, orangutans, gibbons, baboons, monkeys, and humans. All gorillas live in Africa. There are three groups of gorillas: western lowland gorillas, eastern lowland gorillas, and mountain gorillas. Mountain gorillas are the largest gorillas. They have longer hair and longer jaws and teeth than lower land gorillas. Mountain gorillas live in the volcanic mountains of Virunga in east central Africa. The word Virunga means a lonely mountain that reaches to the cloud. Gorillas are mainly herbivores or plant eaters. They keep on the move so they will not deplete a feeding area. A silverback gorilla can eat up to 50 pounds of forest vegetation in only one day. And that's the end of Good Morning Gorillas. Hope you enjoyed. Bye for now. Just have to see what the next book is tomorrow.